Welcome to the Brain Bank Listen and Learn series. I'm Michelle Paulina. With me by phone today is Hagen Denton, who is the business manager for Lutron's energy division. Hagen, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you.
Recent trends have been growing more favorable toward reducing lighting expenses with flexible, scalable energy-saving solutions. Is it true that lighting uses more energy than any other system in a commercial building?
It's absolutely true. In most cases, the lighting portion of the building's consumption is between 38 and 40% of the total energy output of that building, which leaves a lot of room for efficiencies, as you can imagine.
I guess that means that getting control over how the lights are used, how long they are on, how bright they are, and how they are configured in a space dramatically decreases operating costs and can increase top-line revenues, profits, and the overall value of the facility. Can you comment on that?
There's definitely a sense of urgency right now, especially given the economic times, where every business is looking to find ways to reduce costs, and specifically in operating costs. Most buildings haven't addressed their lighting efficiencies. I've recently seen a stat where out of 2.7 million buildings in the United States, 2.2 million haven't been updated, and the 2.7 million really that number is not the total buildings in the United States, obviously, but it's the number of buildings that need updating, so need their lighting and controls updated. And again, the portion of them that have not been updated still today is 2.2 million. So there's a huge opportunity to address the inefficiencies of your light and control systems within a building.
Hagen, you said that of 2.7 million buildings, 2.2 million haven't been updated. With all the talk about energy efficiency, that number surprises me. Does it surprise you?
Yes, absolutely. And the number I think the number is even greater than that, but that is the number where the 2.7 million is really the number of buildings that are with systems that are sometimes 30 years old. So yeah, out of that number, only having half of a million buildings that have been updated, it just shows there's a significant opportunity to go out and help make these spaces more efficient.
It sounds like a well-designed and properly commissioned light control system can save more electricity than any other system in a building. It seems to me that it's not only a good deal for the building owner, but there are some sales opportunities for both the contractor and the distributor.
Absolutely. The entire distribution chain or channel has an opportunity to capitalize on this market. And really what it comes down to is, the ones that are prepared and educated and understand how to bring this information, but probably most importantly, understand how to, paint the picture to the decision makers of these buildings will be the ones that do very well with it.
Hagen, tell me about Energy Tri-Pack.
It's a product that consists of 3 categories. We call our Conserve category, we have our Sense category, and our Adjust category. Those 3 categories, in the Conserve side, it really consists of dimmers and switches. We have PowPack modules, which mount into ceilings on junction boxes. The Conserve family is really the things that are controlling your light. So they are actually hardwired, or they're plugged into something, and those things are actually controlling your light, or we even have plug-in modules, which could be controlling things like your printer, things that are often left on that should probably be turned off more often. And then in our Sense and Adjust category, that's really where you're dealing with occupancy sensors, daylight sensors, but the key differentiator here is that these are wireless devices. So these devices require no hardwire to them, and they actually run on a lithium battery that comes with the product. So this is what makes the execution of these solutions very simple and also very flexible. A lot of people don't like to make a decision on where that occupancy sensor should go, because then they become liable for the position of that occupancy sensor in that space. And over time, sometimes the space can change. But when you have a wireless sensor, you have the ability to move these things around. And one key point with some people are very hesitant to the wireless solutions and dealing with things, especially in a facility that operate on batteries. A way that we've overcome that is we've designed our products to last more than 10 years across the board for all of our wireless solutions. So everything that carries a battery, it will last a minimum of 10 years with that battery and that device.
Can you give us some examples of typical applications for Energy Tri-Pack?
Energy Tri-Pack has been designed in a way where you can scale a space over time. So we're, again, driving towards the goal of being a very simple solution to execute in this space. We've made this a single-room system. So if you wanted to start with a particular space, you could. And what we found is that it's become a very flexible solution. Just recently, I walked a campus. It was a pharmaceutical campus. They had several buildings on campus, and they have identified 23 opportunities where they could control the light better and be more efficient. And these spaces ranged from classrooms to private offices to hallways, corridors, stairwells, and the different strategies for what they wanted to do in each of these spaces was different as well. So some spaces, they just wanted occupancy sensors, so when the space was not occupied, shut off the light. And then in other spaces, they found that there was daylight coming into the space. So when there was enough daylight in the space, they wanted to also shut off the light in a corridor, for example, that has natural light coming into the space. Out of the 23 different spaces, we had 23 solutions with the Energy Tri-Pack, and it's basically like creating little mini systems throughout this building. For 23 is what it came out to, and it still fit their requirements, which was to pay back in less than 4 years on an installed price. So again, the goal with this was to be very, very flexible. So when it ranges from, it's not necessarily the building type that limits this thing the Energy Tri-Pack family. It's really the space type that you can look at, and spaces that range from private offices to corridors to open office, kind of across the board.
Can you tell us how the product would be used in stairwells?
Stairwells have become very popular because of the fact that they're a 24/7. They're typically a 24/7 space, being that the lights are constantly on. They're constantly remaining on, and people keep lights on in a stairwell because it's usually an emergency egress space, and code requires at least 1 foot candle of light to be on 24/7. In the past, there's really been no easy way to maintain 1 foot candle of light without just maintaining your total light. So often when you walk into a stairwell, you'll see that those lights are left in full on 100% of the time. So when you look at the consumption of that space, it's very high, and then when you look at the utilization of that space, it's very low, which means that it's a very inefficient space. So, how could you actually keep your consumption to a point where it's really only consuming energy when it needs to, or when the space is being occupied, is the key goal. So what we've done is we've come out with a stairwell solution where you can actually, it's using the Energy Tri-Pack products. You add a sensor that faces the doorway, so when you come into that stairwell, the sensor will pick you up, and it will then communicate with the stairwell fixtures on that floor, and then it will also communicate with the stairwell fixtures in the floor above you and the floor below you, so that you always have light on and ready for you in the direction that you're headed in the stairwell, either up or down. And what it does to the light is that it actually reduces the light to a low-end trim. Typically, we have it at 10% light, so you're close to 90% efficient when the space is vacant. And then when the space is occupied, it will ramp it up to whatever you want on the high end, because you're dealing with a dimming ballast in the actual stairwell fixture. So the high end could be 60% or 50%. So in a stairwell, typically, most stairwells are probably occupied 5% of the time. So what you could do is you could say, hey, well, 95% of the time I am 90% efficient, and I'm still meeting that code requirement of 1 foot candle, and that's the key. And you obviously have to meet code, but how can you meet code and not exceed code by 200%? So really the way that you're doing that is you're dimming that light down to 10%. You're 90% efficient 95% of the time, and then when someone comes in and accesses the stairwell, you're still efficient. You're sometimes 50 or 40% efficient, even in the high end, because that light fixture is not going to full on. You're only going to 50 or 60%, whatever you choose. It's a field programmable solution, so you can actually change your high end and low end to whatever the occupant's preference is.
Staying with that topic, I understand there's a Reading Area Community College example that you wanted to tell me about.
Yes. We recently had one of our salespeople, Bill Marushak, is one of our salespeople in the Northeast PA. He's an account supervisor for us. And he works a lot with higher education and universities and colleges. He was speaking with the business services director and the CFO of Reading Area Community College, and they agreed to try it with one stairwell. And this is typically the case with lighting control. It's not the most tangible product in the world or solution in the world. It's not something that just comes to mind with people. They need to experience lighting control. So what they did was they took a stairwell fixture, they put it into one of the spaces, and they tried it out. And what this led to was, them, wanting to take a look at the financials for, well, what would this be for across the board if we were to do this across the board on campus? And what we identified for them is that there's an opportunity to save 83.2% in the stairwells. So an 83.2% energy efficiency or energy savings within these stairwells, which really equated to 53,516 kilowatt hours annually, which is big numbers when, these spaces are looking for opportunities to become more green. And the result of all this was basically that one stairwell fixture then resulted in, they wanted to do this across the board. So we've just now executed these stairwell fixtures across the board, campus-wide, and, they're reaping the benefits of the 83.2% energy savings.
Hagen, I'm told that H-series ballasts fit into this discussion as well. Can you tell us about that?
What we've done with the Energy Tri-Pack is we wanted to incorporate this digital ballast technology, but do so with an economical solution. So we've relaunched a group of our ballasts as our H-series ballasts. These are digital-only ballasts that dim from less than 1% to 100%, and we've significantly reduced the cost of these ballasts by nearly 50%. And what that's done is it's opened up Lutron to and dimming fluorescent ballast to areas where you would not normally think about dimming fluorescent ballast. When we ask even engineers, architects, lighting designers, and facility managers, contractors, and you ask them the question of where do you have dimming ballast or where would you put dimming ballast in your facility, they'll often give you the typical response that involves all the architectural spaces. So the conference room, the executive office, things like that. Recently, we've had our H-series ballast go into prison cells and large industrial warehouses. And again, these spaces are very atypical to the thought of dimming because people think of dimming as more of a comfort thing or an aesthetic thing. But what we've done now by making it more affordable is we've reprioritized the benefits of dimming, and we're capitalizing on the energy efficiency of dimming. So this H-series ballast at a much lower cost and making it affordable to these spaces. Now you would think of adding dimming into those corridors. And again, using a prison as an example, hopefully we're not making that extra expense towards, making that cell a more comfortable space, right? I think it's really driven towards making that a more energy efficient space.
Hagen, is there anything I've missed or that you'd like to reemphasize?
We have set up energy@lutron.com as a email address that you can email your questions to. We also have this team, our Center of Energy Excellence, has the ability to provide an ROI analysis, what we call our LEAPS proposals. It's a Lutron Energy Analysis proposal, and again, really that's to make the business case for lighting controls within that space make sense. So it's a financial business case. We'll go through and we can help provide that information to any project that you may have. Again, if you have any projects or you need have any design questions, we can help with for that information.
If our viewers would like more information on this topic, where can they get it?
There are several different ways. On our website, www.lutron.com, there's a wealth of information you can find there. We actually have what's called our Center of Energy Excellence, and there's email addresses associated with those. If you were to send an email to energy@lutron.com, we'll have people that can respond to any of your energy-related questions. We have utility incentives. There are many different incentives out there to take advantage of these various efficiencies, and we publish these incentives that relate to lighting controls at www.lutron.com/incentives.
Hagen, we appreciate you being with us today. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate all the time and look forward to helping our customers with future opportunities.
And thank you for joining us for today's Brain Bank Listen and Learn series. We'll see you next time.